Coming at you live from America's Podcast Studios, the Turf Teacher and Turf Ed with the contractor and service industry platform for success. This is Be a Boss, Data Boss, brought to you via Boots on Ground Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the debut Monday night show. My name is Eric Jones, the Turf Teacher. I'm here with Jennifer Botford, all the way from Mocksville, North Carolina. And what's going on, baby? I'm kind of excited about this.
I'm excited too.
Well, what is our topics tonight?
Well, we've had a lot going on this past week, so there's a lot of stuff that has lent to having topics for tonight.
And actually, a lot's been going on for the past 3 months.
It really has. It really has. It's been a whirlwind, but it's been the best whirlwind ever.
It has. And I guess, guys, this is the debut show of Be a Boss, Data Boss. And so I guess we need to kind of introduce the title and how we came up with that and why we decided to do a show together based on, running our own business and trying to balance that work-life balance.
Well, anytime you're running a business, there's a lot on the plate. And then when you add spouses and children and family, it's a lot to balance. It's a lot to work
and customers
through.
And
well, yeah,
it's everything.
The bulk of everything is just sitting there staring at you, crying for attention.
Yeah. And so, guys, a little bit about, ourselves here. Again, my name's Eric Jones, Turf Teacher. Been all over the place when it comes to the green industry and construction industry. We not only do Turf Teacher Incorporated, we have Trades Teacher as well, where we do continuing education, training for all the trades, mainly focusing on the green industry, but definitely in all of the trades. And that's the one reason that we started Boots on Ground Radio, is to bring you a platform that is tailored to all of the trades, not just the green industry, but construction industry, service industry, anybody that is out there working for themselves, working hard every single day, having to come home and balance, the kids, family, Little League baseball, church, everything. Because being an entrepreneur or a small business owner is very, very tough. And it's tough on the relationships that you're dating, whether it's your wife that you're dating and loving, if it's your girlfriend, and you and I have been together, started seeing each other May 2nd, and slowly built our relationship. Like, we didn't jump into it full force. We slowly developed our relationship and then decided, to be a couple, mid-July. And so it's been, like I said, just wide open ever since then. But enough about me. Our listeners want to hear about you and what it is that you're bringing to the table, because you're, a business owner yourself. You've been in real estate, you've been in insurance, and now you're, doing the corporate world a little bit, and then, helping me along with this, with the radio and everything else. So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have an interesting story. So to not dive into all the parts of that story, I'll just dive into the most recent. So I started out in service industry, being a cosmetologist, doing hair, and got my associate's degree, and, really wanted to move more towards becoming an instructor, teaching, those types of things in that field. Started out in cosmetology, worked on my own. I've worked for corporations, and then COVID happened, and some life changes happened during COVID, and I felt like it was time for me to step away from cosmetology and delve more onto the business side of that world. And I wanted to go to college, go back to school again for the third time, and was really wanted to focus more on business administration. I wanted to learn more about how to run a business and what all that details. But God saw fit to lead me in a different direction. I went into insurance, became an insurance agent, worked for a couple insurance agencies, and it's kind of ironic because I grew up on a dairy farm. So I've been around business, entrepreneur my whole life. My grandparents were entrepreneurs. They owned their own business. My dad, mom, both owned their own businesses when I was growing up. So my parents and my grandparents, and if we keep going down the line, everybody was their own business owners. And there's freedom in owning your own business, but there's a lot, but with freedom comes responsibility.
A tremendous amount of responsibilities.
So I've been around that and seeing that, being taught to me, and work ethic and all those things. And I wanted to learn more about how to run my own business. And being in insurance, I became an agribusiness farm insurance specialist. That was fun. I really enjoyed that because it kind of brought me back to my roots.
Yeah.
But I also learned more about managing new business and managing business pipelines and working with all the facets that come with that. And the door opened for me to become a operations manager for a corporation in the hair industry. And now I am a center manager, a client relationships manager, and I manage not only the business, but I manage the team, and I manage the clients and the money and the profits and the losses and everything that comes with it. So I've been able to delve more into the business side, and it's funny how all this started from me going back to school. When the boys were little, I decided to go back to school, put my focus on cosmetology because I love the beauty industry. But then that just opened all these doors, and I've enjoyed every aspect of all of it. So, yes. And then our paths have crossed,
yes.
And here we are. I mean, we have a lot to bring to the table, both of us.
We do, and I think teaming up, and especially teaming up here on this show, Be a Boss, Data Boss, is designed to kind of help people through some situations when it comes to work-life balance. Because I, for one, have been guilty for working every single hour that I could work. And when I was single, that was 100% okay. Like, I loved it. Like, yeah. It kept me focused. It was my passion. It is my life. But now that, I've started, dating you, and we're in a serious relationship, things kind of change. Like, I want some time off. I want time off to spend with you. I want time to spend off with our kids, with our parents. It's just time to do that. I mean, I turned 51, a few weeks ago, and
and I'm turning 45 in just a few days.
Yeah, 1 week. One week tomorrow.
I know, it's crazy. So, it's crazy.
But I didn't quite rob the cradle. But
no, I don't consider that robbing the cradle. I don't care what nobody says. We're just a few years apart.
That's true.
But yeah, yeah.
And it was so good, hearing you and seeing you work on the topics that we did want to start, because you have a lot of passion about when it comes to relationships, whether it's relationships in the business world, whether it's a personal relationship that you may have been in or was in, and now that you're in one with me, and then relationships with our friends, because there's going to be some opportunities to meet a lot of new people, especially when you're in the business world. Then there's opportunities for people to be a little bit jealous of you, especially friends or whatever that, do not want to put in the work that you may be doing yourself. Everybody thinks that you run your own business, that you're just super rich. That is not the case.
No.
There's nights that you set up on Thursday night, hoping you have enough money deposited in your business checking account so you can make payroll the next day. So there's all of those worries that go along with it. But the topics, or the main focus of tonight's inaugural episode, I'm going to just let you start with that.
Well, everything we do is based around relationships. This podcast is leaning to both relationships in business, but also relationships at home. And these three words that I came up with that I wanted to focus tonight on our podcast can be integrated into both business and romantic relationships, familial relationships, friend relationships, your church relationships, any relationship we have. All these three words is going to fall across the board for all of those. And I think it's important that in any relationship that these three words exist.
Yes.
And I wanted to focus on this because it's important. You've got to have all three of these if you're ever going to be successful. And you're talking a minute ago that people being jealous of you in business or whatever. What people don't understand is not luck. It's hard work.
It's hard work.
You know, I've been single and working my tail off because I didn't have anybody taking my time or my extra time other than my children. So I was spending a lot of time at work and, you know, and trying to balance all that too. But nothing comes by luck.
No.
It all comes by hard work and taking time and spending. I mean, you've got to really put your head down and focus.
Yeah. My dad did say, though, my dad, that I lost a year ago, he always told me, he said, son, he said, hard work. When you put in the hard work, he said, you have every opportunity with this hard work that it may just cross good luck path. Mm-hmm. Like he said, if you're working hard and you're out there every day, you may just come across some good luck along the line, which is when your business is going to flourish. But you gotta be working hard. You've got to be putting in the hours because the luck isn't going to find you at all if you're sitting at home on the couch.
Well, yeah. There's a song that I've heard. You walk out the door and it's just like you walked into the right day at the right time. And I think if you're working hard and you're walking out that door every day, and you're staying structured and you're integrating these three words that we're going to talk about into that, it's going to lend you and lead you to the path where it feels like luck, or it could be a strike of luck for that moment. But that opportunity would not have been there if you hadn't have got up and walked out the door that day.
Exactly.
Well,
what three words do we have?
Well, the first one is integrity. You've got to have integrity in everything you do.
Yeah.
Trust. You got to build trust. In relationships with people, period. Spouse, family, clients, customers, it doesn't matter. You got to have trust. And then, of course, with those two words, the last one is boundaries. I feel like boundary is the ultimate thing that you have to have in order to make all these things work. Mm-hmm. You can have integrity. A lot of people say integrity is who you are behind closed doors, and that is so true. But integrity, if you look at the root word of integrity, it's a Latin root word. It's called integer. It means to integrate or leave intact. It's making that whole. And I think as a person, to be a whole person, it's being honest, being upright, being trustworthy. It's undivided. You can't be divided in a relationship and have a successful business. Yeah. Whether you're business partners or whether you're husband and wife having your own business, you can't be divided.
No. And most of our listeners, being Boots on Ground Radio, there are a lot of husband-wife business owners. They're working together side by side every single day, and then they go home at night and they're taking care of the kids, the ball games, the chores around the house. So these are two people that are spending so much time together that there's not a break, and so that plays into a lot of maybe even filtering down into some boundaries that they may need to have. But I love when you talk about the coming together, which nobody ever thinks about that when it comes to integrity. They're thinking integrity, like you said, is what you do behind closed doors or when nobody is looking. So continue with this because this is really good stuff.
Well, you know me, I get passionate when I'm on something and I know that there's a lot of truth behind that. I want to share it.
Yes.
But with integrity, it's got to be sound. It's got to be whole. It can't be divided. And you and I have experienced divorce. And this is a hard subject for all married couples to go through or discuss if they've had to face divorce. If they faced it, and you've got children involved, it truly affects you for the rest of your life.
It does.
And division is ultimately what causes divorce, because you and your spouse at some point in that marriage become divided. You're not on the same page. And because you and I both have experienced that, and we understand that, and we know what happens in that scenario, coming into doing a business, you can't be divided. You can't be divided in home. You can't be divided at work.
Oh, no.
You can't be divided if you're a church member. When you go to church on Sundays, that's your church family. Your pastor stands up there and you're part of the church congregation. You can't be divided if you have one unified goal to reach whatever you're doing. And it's the same with your business. You are reaching customers. You're reaching a base of people that trying to grow your business. And it's the same with a husband and wife, boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. You have to constantly come back to the center focus of that relationship and stay unified. And I think unity is big when it comes to the integrity of a relationship. But in order to have that integrity, you've got to be able to trust each other. So without integrity, you're not going to trust it.
No.
You're not. Because trust is a firm belief in reliability. You got to know that you can rely on that person to be honest and be upright. And that's the integrity part of it. You've got to trust that. And without trust, you don't have anything.
No. And it's something that, people, even in business, you have to really work to gain the trust of those customers.
Yeah.
They have to see you more than once. They have to talk to you more than once. They have to have you do smaller jobs before you land the big job with them. They have to feel a sense of trust and basically trust you from the get-go, especially some of these larger jobs. We got contractors on here that are doing, 100,000 plus landscapes or 100,000 plus remodels, or think of the custom home builder that's building $1 million house for a customer. That is tremendous amount of trust, to trust one individual, because usually home builders is one person that's doing it, and he's, usually supported by his spouse, his wife, or he may have another business partner. But that is a tremendous amount of trust to have $1 million project going on.
Oh, yeah.
And the sad thing is that trust could be lost immediately.
Yeah.
In one comment, one Facebook post, you have to be very, very careful when you gain somebody's trust, that you don't want to lose it, especially when your finances are dependent on it, and more or less, also with your spouse. You don't.
If you're a small business owner and you're married, it's you and your spouse running that business, whether he or she's running it and he or she's supporting it. It's both. And, you go back to the smallest of things can ruin a trusting relationship with a contractor or with a home builder, or, in my case, being in the cosmetology industry, working with hair and working with people and the product and the clients. And it doesn't, this goes across all business landscapes. Doesn't matter what the field is. It's across all of those. But, I've heard the saying my whole life, it's the small foxes that ruin the vines. And it's because it just takes a small hole or small opening for something to sneak through and ruin your whole business, your whole business concept, or your whole relationship. Yeah. So and having that client, that customer, to be able to trust you is huge, because they are what's paying your paycheck. They are what's paying for the product that in turn lends to your profit of that business, and lends in turn to the loss of that business, whether it's negative word of mouth. And, and I don't remember what the statistic is for that, but for every one positive, how many people does that get shared to? But a negative feedback on Google or negative post on Facebook
spreads
or
like
a review,
wildfire.
yes, it reaches more people than a positive does. So you have to work even harder to make sure you're getting that positive feedback. But how are you going to give positive feedback? You got to build a trust. You got to build that trust in that relationship, and it starts at home. It starts with you. You are the sole person building that trust, whether it's with your spouse or the client or the business or however you want to look at that.
And then what about taking in the concept of employees?
Oh, yeah. They got to trust you as their boss. They got
to trust you, and you have to trust them as the employees, because, again, that one bad fox could be an employee that's allowing some bad stuff to happen. So
I think that's been the biggest thing that I've had to learn as a business, being the one in charge of the business, running the business, is you're right. It's not, it's a fine balance, because there's a fine line between protecting your team, standing up for your team, loving your team, helping them strike that work-life balance too. Because, at the end of the day, these employees are going to go home. They've got families. That's why they're working these jobs, because it's putting food on the table. It's turning the lights on. It's paying the rent or the mortgage, paying the car payment. As a single mom, there has been a lot riding on me taking care of 2 teenage boys as a single mom. And so, I put everything I had into that job, because that's what was paying my paycheck. I needed a boss that I could trust, that was going to make sure to protect what I'm making. So it's the same as a business owner. You want to protect your employees, but you also don't want to favor bad behavior from an employee just because they're a great employee and they get the job done. But are we favoring bad behavior and overlooking the best behavior, good behavior of other employees? Because all that's going to do is just draw the
one bad apple will ruin the bushel.
Yeah. So there's so many things I've learned in this job that I'm in as being the leader, the quote unquote boss. I hate being called a boss.
It's not
about being a boss. It's about being a team player.
But that's the name of our show.
It is.
That's ironic.
It really is, because we're being a boss. We're leading a pack of people. We're leading a business. We're leading clients. We're leading the money. We are leading everything. And then you come home and you're still leading. You're leading your kids. You're working together with your spouse. Having that trust, you've got to have confidence. And anytime that there's trust that has to be built, there's got to be substance to trust. And what is the substance? And
what is it?
And exactly. And that could be a different answer for different people. What is your substance? What are you hoping in? To hope into something, you've got to have something to believe in.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? As a business owner, what would that look like? What does that look like for you as a business owner? What does that look like for me? And then you and I have to come together and say, this is what I want from this. And I say, this is what I want from this. And what would that look like if it was different? How do we bring that together? Or what if it was the same? It makes it easier. But as entrepreneurs and as small business people, you've got to find that happy medium to be able to make it work. It's unity. And it comes back to integrity. Now, you're talking about integrity and you're talking about trust, but with that, how do we protect what we're creating? We take our integrity to the table. We're going to unify everybody. You've got to be able to have trust. You got to build trust, whether it's clients or family or whatever it is. But how do you protect those things?
Yeah, exactly. And that is a good point. So, what do you think?
Well, for me. And what I've learned, and you and I had this conversation just the other night about our own personal relationship, is setting boundaries.
Yes.
You've got to set boundaries. What that looks like is going to be different for everybody, because it's going to be based on your situation and what that looks like.
True.
But boundaries, Webster's dictionary says boundaries is a line that marks the limits of an area. It's dividing the line.
It's a border.
Yeah, it is. It's a border. Anytime you look at, so let's just use you and I as an example. This is a romantic relationship, which we've been blessed to bring other things to the table outside of that. And I think it makes us a strong couple. That being said, we've got to set boundaries to protect that relationship.
Yeah.
The same thing applies to setting boundaries at work, whether it's with employees, whether it's with clients, whether it's with your work-life balance. You've got to set boundaries, and that is what's going to ultimately protect the business or protect the marriage, protect the relationship. And it's, you got to do it with parenting kids too. You and I both have raised kids. Our kids are almost grown. My youngest is a junior in high school. Yours is a senior in high school. We've got older kids. And as a parent, you have to set boundaries with your kids.
Yeah.
There's a whole book line called Boundaries that's out there, and I've read a couple of them, and they're amazing books. And I need to pull them back out and go back through the highlighted sections and remind myself of some of these things. But when you're in a relationship, boundaries are important. Whether it's with work or home, boundaries are important because it's what's protecting your investment.
Yeah. And guys, a good example with that would be, hey, you still need to date your spouse. You still need to date your girlfriend, whatever romantic relationship that you're in. There has to be one-on-one time with that. And let's say you are a small business owner and you're on a date and your phone rings and it's a client who's complaining about the service that happened today. Guys, I don't know how you feel about this, but when you're at home, you're at home. And you and I have discussed, our future plans together and, tying the knot, one day and making this a committed relationship. I don't want to have to deal with that customer on a Friday night at 9:00.
Right.
That is setting boundaries because that is time for you and I. That is time for the family. That is time for the kids. We don't want to be at a ball game like we were Friday night and someone's texting or, hey, when can you do this? When can you get that? And granted, I understand that a lot of our customers especially that we work for at Elite Landscape Contractors, they're business owners themselves. So a lot of the times that's the only time that they have to do that. And that's okay if they text, whatever. But if it's having that family phone that you only have that you turn on the weekends, leave that business phone in the office. There's no way I'm going to take work home, once you and I become, husband and wife. It's just not going to happen because I want to spend it with the kids and doing everything that they're doing. We've just got a lot of things going on with these kids that I want to be able to do.
Well, and I think that applies differently to every situation. Going back to what you said, Friday nights, that's our family time. That's our date time. For us, the weekends, and I work Saturdays right now. So we don't get a Saturday together until after I get off work. So that causes us to protect that free time even more because we only have a couple of days that we can really just focus on
each other.
And then through the week, it's about work. It's about the kids. It's about, building this, the radio station and our podcast. I mean, there's so many things that we have to look at.
You're working until 7:00 a couple of nights a week. I'm doing webinars to 8:00 at night. We're doing this podcast 7 to 8, live radio show. So there's always something. And there's many nights that we don't even think about dinner until 9:00.
Yeah. It'll be like, are we really eating this late at night? But sometimes it happens. And, and it's a hard balance to strike. I mean, it really is. And I think a lot of marriages have suffered from not being able to strike that balance. I've experienced it in past marriage and relationship. I've experienced that. I know what that looks like. And you don't, and I'll speak from a woman's perspective as a wife perspective with a husband that's in business, running a business. You don't want to come across as a nagging woman. You want to say what you need to say. But a lot of times most women, and I'll speak for myself, you're treading lightly because that's your income. That's what's paying the bills. Where do you draw the line and what does that look like? And I think when you get to that point, I think it comes down to you and your spouse sitting there having a discussion and finding that balance together. I don't think it's one person setting the boundary versus the other. I think it's both of you sitting and saying, let's talk through this. Let's figure out what this is going to look like. How are we going to make this work? And then you got to stick to it. You have to commit to that. That's the thing. It's like raising kids. I think the biggest thing I had to learn was consistency. In raising a child, you can set a rule, but if you're not consistent and following up with that rule and following up with the discipline that comes behind breaking the rule, then that kid's never going to trust the fact that you set a rule and that rule's there, then you mean business. what does it requires? It requires consistency. You have to constantly say, I said this, you did this, and this is what this is, the discipline is going to look like. And the more you do that, your kid's going to know, hey, mom, dad means business. I've experienced it. They mean business. It's the same in the business. You set a boundary, either, and being in the hair industry, I will tell you, as being a stylist, running my own booth, setting my own schedule, doing those things. I don't do that so much anymore because now I'm on a set corporate schedule, but I've experienced it from both sides of the fence, so I can speak to both sides. But what I'm speaking to now is being someone in charge of my own schedule, and you running your businesses and running your own schedule. Either you run the schedule or the schedule runs you. You run the clients or the clients will run you. And I think that's a hard balance. I see so many business owners missing the mark because it's a big contract. It's worth thousands of dollars. And then here you are, you're running over here and you're not protecting that boundary because you see all the money that's sitting over here that's going to come from that. And then what happens? It bleeds into home. It bleeds into other relationships. And you're afraid of losing that money because you didn't set the boundary very clear. That brings me to the quote that I wrote down because I thought it was important. It said, when we fail to set boundaries and hold people accountable, we feel used and mistreated. And that's big. I mean, that's big. That could be client, home. I mean, it could apply to anybody. This is why we attack who they are, which is far more hurtful than addressing a behavior or a choice. I've heard, I've been in and out of therapy, and I've listened to a lot of therapists, and one of the biggest things I have used for myself is name it, not blame it.
Yeah.
You can throw blame all day long, but that doesn't fix anything.
Yeah.
You got to name what the problem is. It's not the person, it's the problem. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's the same in business. Name it instead of blame it.
Yeah. And a lot of times those small issues get blown out of proportion. And if you just address that issue, it can be taken care of very, very quickly and you move on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It doesn't linger on and fade into the next task and the next contract that you're signing or whatever. So good point.
I read something this week. I'm in a leadership book club at my work, and there again, I'm learning a lot in this leadership thing that I'm doing. And it was talking about when you're addressing a situation, whether it's you're addressing something negative or something positive, you need to address it in one breath. The reason why you address it in one breath is so that you're not overstating or you're overcomplicating it. Because then what's going to happen if you're overstating? Let's use something positive. You're telling an employee what a great person they are and what a great job they do with their work, and you just keep going on and on and on and on. And at this point, you're 10 breaths in. Well, what's going to happen is now it's become an arguable point. If you say it in one breath, one sentence.
Great job today.
There's nothing to argue. But if you just keep going, what are you doing? You're opening up more subjects to argue about, more points that they can come back and argue to you, whether it's positive or it's negative. So I think one of the biggest things I've learned in running my business is just do it in one breath. Because I'm an overthinker.
Really?
Yes, and
really?
You've learned this about me. I really am, and it's something I am working on, and will probably continue working on for the rest of my life. Because as humans, we're always evolving. We're never completely finished, and that's something I've had to learn about myself. And it's been a hard thing to face. Is I'm never going to hit the mark. I'm just not. I'm always going to be close, but I'm never going to hit it because we're always evolving.
True.
But I think that's the biggest thing I've had to learn for myself, not just personally, but in business, is just say it and leave it.
Yeah.
And not question it, not argue it. Say it in one breath. It's a non-arguable point. But the more you talk, which I tend to do because I'm an overthinker, and you've learned this about me, because there's been times you're like, babe, you're overthinking. Babe, you're overanalyzing. Oh, I am, ain't I? So I need to stop. And I think that can affect your business negatively if you do that.
Yeah.
And it can impact your relationship, because we had a very serious conversation a couple weeks ago, and I just could not shut up because I was trying to fix it and I wasn't fixing it, and I was putting my foot in my mouth. And you do that in business too. Yeah. I mean, you do. And it's funny how those things mirror each other, but they really do.
Yeah.
It's a relationship, period.
Well, and I probably didn't help with the matter, because when I typically am bothered by something, what do?
You get quiet.
I get super quiet, don't I?
You do
And
get
then
quiet.
you're trying to figure me out. And you're like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I'm like, well, to be honest with you, really nothing. It's just, and then, but you'll pinpoint something and you seem to find it. And you're like, I think this is what's bothering you. And sometimes it takes you telling me that's what was bothering you.
Because I'm naturally an investigator. And I'll be honest, I think any women that are listening to this right now would agree with me. Most women are investigators.
We like to dig, don't
We
they?
dig. We're diggers. We're finders. Because, we're moms.
True.
We've got children. We're raising children. And, sometimes your kids come home and they're upset and they don't want to tell you what's going on.
True.
And you got to dig. You got to go behind the scene. It's like FBI. You got to go find it.
Just like with Sierra and I. Like when you're here and Sierra walks in and she's had a bad night at work. And Sierra's my oldest daughter, so she's a waitress and she's, a college student. When she walks in and she's had an issue, usually not with a customer, but with a coworker.
Yeah.
And you're like, just let her calm down. Just, she walks in and she's like, I've just had a bad night. Like so-and-so did this or said this. And I want to jump up and like,
you want to hug her and pet her and be that dad, which I think is a beautiful thing that you have that relationship with all three of your girls. And that's one of the things I love about you. And I adore that about you. But sometimes we girls just need our space.
You need 5 minutes to breathe, and you were right. Then Sierra would come in, and she's like, well, let me tell you about this. She just needed her 5 minutes, whether it was getting in the shower, jamming to some music, or just like you said, alone with her thoughts. But I wanted to fix it for her.
Yeah, and I think as a parent, we're fixers anyway because we're parents. We want to make sure our kids are taken care of and they're getting their needs met and the necessities are there for them. And it's constant. And just because they grow up and move out of the house, it never stops.
Yeah.
I see my mom and dad, how they are with me. I think for my parents, and if they're listening to this, they know that I have paid attention to this. My mom has said this to me just recently. You're a grown woman, and I have to step back and let you be an adult. Let you be a grown woman, be who you are. I can't worry about you all the time because, me being a single mom with 2 teenage boys, of course my mom and dad's going to worry about me.
Yeah.
Because until you came into my life, I didn't really have anybody to protect me, cherish me, and give me that security and relationship and be there. So it became my family, became my mom and my dad. My dad had my dad didn't have to, but he chose to step up to the plate and be that person for me in that time frame. And thankfully, and I'm blessed, I've got friends that I've been able to rely on, and even my church family, my pastor and my church and the ladies group that I've been involved in there, that was a big support system for me. And, and that's been a big part of me on Sundays is church. I mean, we spend half a day at church and
no, it's about 3/4 of the day.
It feels like it, especially when I'm doing, I'm on the music team that morning and I'm there for both services and it's a long day. I love it.
Yeah,
I absolutely
exactly.
love it. But, I've been blessed to have those people in my life to help me and love me and support me and pray for me and be there for me. And, and you've had that too. Your mom and dad, what a legacy your dad left behind. I mean, I wasn't even able to meet your dad, but the stories I've heard and, spending a lot of time with your mom and getting to know your mom and your brother and your family and your girls, I've been able to see that in your life because as parents, even your mom now, she never quits worrying over you and you're 51 years old. It never goes away because that's your parents.
Yeah.
So as parents,
we do the same.
We're going to always be doing that.
Yeah. And well, it's just like, when Sierra goes out with a new guy, I worry myself to death.
I'm sure my parents felt the same way about me.
And it's just like, I'm like, Sierra, okay, and just because I ask a question, what's his last name? She gets a little upset, a little worried about it. But I mean, there again, Sierra, we need to set boundaries when it comes to that. Like, you don't need to go to his house the first date. You need to meet at a Starbucks, and grab a cup of coffee before you, or meet for lunch one day. Look at what we did.
Yeah.
We never Yeah, how many dates was it before I went to your house or you came here?
It was a few. It was a few. And then even when you came to my house, it was just you met me at the door and I walked out. Like I didn't even let you in my house.
Yeah, I picked you up and we
Yeah,
had dinner
yeah.
and then brought you back.
Yeah.
So, and I'm so thankful that we did take our time. Like we didn't rush it.
No.
Because both of us were in. We were both on the dating scene and we had to. Get rid of those and set boundaries.
So we had
we had to set boundaries.
We had to set those boundaries, and you got to. I mean, I'm gonna lend over a little bit to just romantic relationships, and I'm gonna speak this into the hearts of the men and women that's listening right now. You've got to protect the heart of your spouse, but more importantly, you've got to protect your heart. If you're not protecting your heart, you are opening yourself up to vulnerability and temptations. And whether it doesn't matter what that is, but when those people creep into your life, like you and I, like you said, we've been on the dating scene. We went out with people. We've had people that had our numbers and had access to us. And
that we forgot about.
Yeah. And moved on and never thought it would be another worry or anything like that. And then you start hearing back from these people because they see we're in relationships now. And you have to say, no, that this is not allowed. Okay. We're not together. We are together. You are not part of this situation. You are not part of this new scenario.
And it's funny though, how people, when they do see that you're happy, that you are in a relationship, they do want to reach out and just say, hey, good to see that you're in a relationship, or hey, how's it going? Like just that phrase, hey, how's it going? You know how it's going because you've stalked us on Facebook. Like how to do that. They
are still friends with us on Facebook.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like you said, a lot of the times we forget about that person, because if you only go out with somebody 2 or 3 times and you realize, hey, this isn't going to work, and then you've gone out with somebody else, and then next thing you know, hey, I've met the one. In our case, we were so busy getting to know each other that we didn't really go through Facebook and be like, you know what? Hey, I don't need to have this person following me or talking to me or messaging me. And, case in point, I will hurt anybody's feelings to protect yours.
And I appreciate that.
I'm not going to, and it's not that I'm tempted. I have no temptation because I love you and I want to be with you. So the other females that I've dated in the past, they don't exist. And I went through all of my Facebook friends, blocked them, deleted them. Not that they were going to be an issue, but I would never want you to even remotely think that they could have been an issue.
It's prevention. It's setting a boundary.
Yes.
This is the hard line. This is where we are. And because of us having these conversations and knowing what we have, knowing what God has given us together as a couple, we want to protect that at all costs.
Yes.
We do. And I had to make some hard decisions on friendships that, whether dated or not, they were friendships or whatever I had to end them. Like, you are not part of my life anymore.
Yep.
I'm giving this part of my life to Eric. And Eric is giving that part of his life to me. And I think as long as you and I have integrity in our relationship
and trust,
setting boundaries, we will have a very successful relationship.
Yes.
And the same thing applies in business, which is the whole reason why we named the podcast Be a Boss.
Date a Boss.
Because you're being a boss.
Yeah.
But we're also dating a boss. And it worked out perfect for us both because we're both bosses.
Yeah.
So we felt starting a podcast, talking about both sides of the fence, business and relationships, because it's a seesaw. You and I had this conversation the other day about we're not always going to feel 100%.
Yes.
And you're a seesaw. A seesaw is one board. I'm on one end. You're on the other end. We're a unified front.
There's days that we're 50-50, but there's days that you may be 70 and I'm 30, and you have to balance that part out.
Yeah. And that impacts your business, because if the home front is not safe and not protected, your business is not safe and not protected. In that it's conscious leadership is the book that I'm in right now, and they were talking about this company had went in and was trying to help build teamwork and unity within this large corporation, and the CEO was having an affair, and the people could not, they didn't feel that there was integrity even within their own company. So the company that went in to do the teamwork in the building, they ended up parting ways because the CEO would not break the cycle he was in, and the people, the employees couldn't build the trust because they knew what their boss, their CEO was doing, and there's no integrity there.
No.
None. So as a business owner, as a husband, wife, spouse, whatever, the situation is, you've got to have integrity in every aspect of your life.
Yeah. And case in point here, if you're having a situation at home, if you take it to the office and, you have your morning meetings with your employees or whatever, if you show up mad because of something that happened at home, and like we've made a promise, and luckily we've only had 2 minor little discussions. We didn't get mad, but it was two situations that
Minors,
we needed
that could have been majors.
That could have been majors, but we made a promise to each other to discuss everything, bring it out onto the table, and we've made a promise that, when you're at your house and I'm here at my house, we never hang up the phone mad.
No,
we solve whatever little minor situation that has arose because we want that comfort. We want that trust because we trust each other. We don't want it to leave. So we're taking care of the home front. But let's say if something happens to a young man that started a mowing business or a painting business, whatever they're doing, and he's having some trouble at home and he shows up at his shop, and if he's in a bad mood, the employees are going to be in a bad mood. Then the customers are going to see the employees in a bad mood, which makes the customer mad, calls the owner, gets mad at him. It's like a rotating cycle.
It's a trickle effect.
Yes.
It's a snowball effect.
Yep. Same thing with work. If you have a bad day at work, in which I am, and people say, you can't criticize somebody for their work-life balance. Some people just love to work. Some people absolutely love it. Gary Vee talks about it all the time. Work, work, work. That's what he wants to do. And I used to be that way. But if I'm going to go home from the office or at the college where I'm lucky enough to teach, if I bring that home, you're going to pick up, Eric's not in a good mood. It may put you in a bad mood. So work is left at the office. Yeah. I take a deep breath, put on some music. I always call you and say, hey, I'm leaving. This is what I'm going to do. If I got to put on some tunes just to clear the air, I'm 100% better by the time I meet up with you.
And I would rather you do that than to come home and carry the weight of that and bring it home to our relationship. Because like you said, and you and I both have said it, we are fighting to find time to see each other through the week because we both have jobs. We both run businesses. We both are parents. And, I live in Moxville. You live in Pofftown. So, there's a lot of travel time between the two. And then church on Sundays and, going to the Wake Forest Deacon games and all the things, all the fun things and serious things that we're doing. It's important to me that even if you're in a bad mood, I want you to take time and process so that when you come to me, we can talk about it and it doesn't impact our relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the key is being able to talk about it. And, and I think one of the things one of my therapists told me, and I've lived by it because I've seen it come to fruition, is if you are in a bad mood and then there's an argument that happens, if that conversation doesn't go up, but continues to go down after 5 minutes in that conversation, it's a wash.
Yeah.
You're not going to bring it back. Yeah. You're not. And you have to say, you know what? I love you. I want you to know that I love you. I care about you. I'm not going anywhere. This is not going to impact our marriage. It's not going to impact our relationship. I need to take time and pause on this. Can we come back and talk about this at another time? For me, that's hard. Well, it works, but it's hard because you know me. I want to talk about it right now.
You're the problem solver.
Let's get it out. Yes, I want it now. I want it now. I got to fix it. Got to fix it. Got to fix it. Oh, I can't go to sleep on this. But then usually when we've done that and we step away and we're good with each other.
And we're not stepping away from each
no,
other.
No, just step away from the conversation.
That conversation.
And come back and change the conversation, change the tone. Usually when we come back, the conversation is so much better.
Yeah.
And it's
a lot
more
easier.
productive. When the conversation is not productive, there's no use. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not. It's not any use. And I think you and I both have learned that in past relationships. That's actually one of the questions that I wrote down. What have we learned from past relationships?
Oh, wow.
Business and personal.
Business, you have to take care of your existing customers that you have. Yes, we're all looking for new customers, but I have a prime example of this, and this hit me right before, when we started talking about our topics earlier. Snow removal. And we haven't had much snow here in North Carolina for a while, but we used to have extensive winters. And we may not have had so much snowfall, but we would have what we called an ice event. And so we're, pre-treating for salt. We may have to go and, chip a little bit of ice off sidewalks, or, keep only the drive-through at a bank or a Walgreens or CVS. We had several contracts with those guys years ago that would just keep the drives through. The store may be closed, but the pharmacy's open. So we had to keep, the drive-through lanes empty. Those were our existing customers. Well, when you have a snow event, or maybe a larger snow event where we actually do get an accumulation, the phone rings off the hook. You can't go and jump and take on these new customers because you're going to lose the existing ones you have. And a simple situation is we worked for this couple. They were business owners. They had a very nice home. We did all of their work for them at the house. And, they eventually let us go. We still do their Christmas lights, but we don't do their turf grass. We don't do their landscaping or anything like that, but they still want us to do the Christmas lights. Well, at their business, they needed snow removal done. We did have a snow event about 3 years ago, and he called me. He's like, I'll pay whatever it takes to get it. I need my parking lot scraped. And I'm like, well, I can't get there right now because I'm taking care of a property that is bread and butter, we do a ton of work for. And it's like he got a little upset. I'm like, I can't just stop what I'm doing and take care of you. You let us go from the other work.
Right.
I can't. So again, that was a boundary that I had to set up with him. Say, well, look, we can't do it. I'm going to take care of my existing customers. So that is a relationship thing that I've learned. Personally, we deserve what we want in a relationship. Mm-hmm. We do not settle.
No.
And it's not that person that we were with were bad people. They just were my people. Right. She wasn't my person. And that's okay. There's somebody out there for her that's going to love her the way she needs to be loved, mm-hmm. and she can love. You and I are on that very same page when it comes to loving each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
We both love each other's attention. We're both, I don't like the word needy, but we
speak the same love language.
Yes,
we do.
100%.
And that makes filling our love tank per the 5 love languages that I've read. And
great book.
Dr. Chapman is amazing.
But he's Baptist, isn't he?
He is. He was the former pastor of Calvary Baptist
Church. Yep.
Great man. And very knowledgeable, and mm-hmm. has done some marriage workshops and things like that. But how true is it that we all have a love tank, and if you're not speaking that love language of your partner, whatever one of the 5 gifts, and some of us have more than one. Yeah. Sometimes they're on the same. They're pretty.
I think I have all of them.
Yeah. Well, we do. We all have them. I mean, all 5 love languages pertains to each person.
Yes.
But sometimes you have a more dominant one. And I think for you and I, it's time.
Yeah.
We need time with each other. Yep. Words of affirmation. We both thrive off of words of affirmation. I think words of affirmation is you and I, it's both of our primary love language, and then time. I think those two together is our biggest ones. And
then even physical touch, because we're always holding hands. We're always,
I need to feel your hand in mine. That connects me to you when we're out walking or whatever.
Yeah, and how how we communicate that way when we don't even say any words.
Oh yeah.
Like just holding hands.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But.
Well, I think you and I have talked about this extensively, and it's not that our past people in our life are bad people. They just weren't the right people for us. In
Army selection, when it comes to trying out for some of these units, and Russ Owens, my co-host in the morning, can tell you about this, it's not always the best guy that makes it. It's the right guy. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the way I've always approached, romantic relationships from that point. Yeah, there's better guys out there probably for you, but I'm the right guy for you.
Absolutely, 100%. We wouldn't be sitting here doing what we're doing if we didn't feel we weren't right together. But you and I both know we're right for each other. Like this is. I mean, we can't. I'm not going to sit here and try to fluff everybody else. What matters to me is that you are happy and you feel loved, and I'm filling your love tank. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters to me. That's our number one priority. And, it comes back to what I just wrote down earlier. The more you value yourself or your relationship, the healthier your boundaries are. Yeah. So if you value what you've got, you're going to protect it. You're going to take care of it. It goes back like our kids. If we just hand something to our kids, they're not going to appreciate it the same as if they went and worked for it and earned it themselves.
True.
So it's the same in a relationship. When you're investing time into that person, you're placing value on that. That's an investment. So you're going to protect what you value.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Business, personal, you're going to protect what you value.
Yeah. And remember, the date that we had, it was the second time that we ate Buffalo Wild Wings. It was the same day that I told you, I said, you're going to be mine before October.
And I laughed. I laughed. I looked at you and I thought you were crazy. But you were so right.
I thought that's what made you fall for me.
No, it did because there was confidence. And I'm like, this man is so confident that he's going to make this happen.
And I did.
You did. And I remember walking out of that restaurant that day, because this is one of the times that we had not met each other outside of lunch. Yeah. And I remember walking out of there. I was like, oh my gosh, like he is what I want. I want a man that's like, this is what I want. Because you and I both have been on the dating field.
It sucks.
A lot of fumbles, a lot of things, just wasn't panning out, wasn't working. And I think for me, I was seeing a lot of no intention. It was just, I just want somebody to go eat dinner with me. There was no intention. For me, it was intention. I'm not going to date without intention to have a relationship with you. It's, this other part of the world, the dating world that it has become. And if anybody's listening that is dating and out there, exactly what Eric and I are talking about. The dating world in this generation is insane. It is absolutely insane. It is nothing like what it was when we were in high school or college back in our early days. No. It's nothing. I mean, you got social media, you got all these dating apps. I mean, you got all these things, and you can meet people on the dating apps because you and I actually met on one. Yeah. So, but there again, you got to be selective and you got to be careful and you got to set boundaries. But yeah, when you said that to me that day, I was like, wow, I was impressed. I was like, this man is crazy confident. He truly believed that he was going to make me his. And it just wowed me. I had a wow factor. I already had a wow factor with you on our first date. But then when you said that to me that day, I was like, okay, I hear you, Mr. Jones.
And there was something else that we actually said there that day as well. And I just had to bring that up, and it's made me forget what we were going to say. But it was our second date at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about putting value on the relationship. And don't you hate when that happens? Like you had this thought and it's there.
And it's gone, vanished.
Like, poof is
vanished.
gone. Which is why I'm sitting here with notes.
Yes.
To help me stay on
Yes.
track, because I will chase a rabbit in a heartbeat. I have so many squirrel moments. It's insane because I have ADD, and my girls at work, my team, they know that about me. And so I have a notebook and I keep up with everything I'm doing during the day, and whatever I don't get done, I have a reminder I got to do this the next day. If I don't write it down, I don't remember it.
Well, true. Yeah.
I hate when that happens, when you have this really amazing thought and you want to share it.
I'm kind of mad at myself that it's gone, way gone. But it was about us in dating, though. And like I said, we were very quiet about our dating each other. Like I didn't tell mom, I didn't tell the girls or anything.
I didn't tell my family either.
Because our first date was May 2nd, May 2nd. And it was, like I said, just very, very slow going. And I think that's why we're strong now.
I think so too. Yeah.
I just remembered what I was going to say.
What was it? I'm excited to hear.
When we were there, the second time we were at Buffalo Wild Wings, was that our second date or was that our third date?
I think it was our second date.
Okay. But I looked at you and I said, you know what? I said, Jennifer, I like you enough as well. I said, I'm going to make you mine. But I said, if for some reason that doesn't work out, we're definitely going to be the best of friends, and that you were continuously going to be in my life, just because we connected. We connected as friends way first before we did as boyfriend girlfriend.
We did. Well, because you and I had a lot of similarities in our lives. Like you understand the farm life. I grew up on a farm. I understand the farm life. I understand the responsibilities that come with that. And I understood the type of people that you are, and you understood my people. Your people understood my people, and I think at the end of the day, that's what really mattered. But I think if we take everything we've talked about tonight, go back to the 3 words, it applies to every relationship in your life. More importantly, about being a boss, dating a boss, is having integrity, but staying unified. It's not just about who you are behind closed doors. It's about being a whole person and being unified on the front. Trust. You got to have trust in that relationship. Yes. But to protect all of that, you've got to set boundaries. Yes. You have to set them. They've got to be there.
And and this is the first relationship that I have been in that we share everything that's on our phones. We have each other's passcodes,
passwords.
Face ID on each phone, because we're not hiding anything from each other. No. And that to me is the most amazing feeling. It's to the point where I know I don't even need to check, because I do have the access to check. And the same thing with you. It's that open trust. And if there was ever the slightest thought, you can always go and reassure yourself, hey, there's nothing nothing there.
Exactly. You want, especially in a husband and wife relationship, in our situation, we're not quite there yet, although that's the goal, is when you're running a business, you've got to trust your spouse to run the business. You've got to trust each other. But without trust and integrity, it's not going to be successful, both the business or the relationship. Yeah. And I love the fact that I can leave my cell phone anywhere and somebody dings and you can pick it up and read it. Yeah. I don't have anything to hide. And it's same here. And that's so important. It's the same thing in business. If you can't trust your spouse at home in the relationship, you're not going to trust your spouse in the business. It all comes back to integrity, all comes back to trust. And how do you do all those things? You've got to set boundaries. What you value, you protect. Yep. So, got to be a boss.
And got to date a boss.
Got to date a boss, but you got to have those things in line.
All right. Guys, thank you so much for joining us here on our first episode. It'll be live on all of the platforms here in just a few minutes. So, we appreciate it, and we are going to see you each and every Monday night here on Boots on Ground Radio. Take care, guys. We will see you a little bit later.
Have a good night.
Take care. Go Deeks.
Go Deeks.